During the May Day holiday, Derek was all about seeing the northern lights. I tried to tell him the weather up in the Arctic's been weird, with a risk of blizzards. My parents? They thought I was jinxing it and slapped me good for saying so. In the end, we headed to the Arctic, and guess what? The blizzard hit as I feared. They took everything from me, even my food, and left me to freeze to death alone out there. When rescuers found us, my parents hugged Derek tight, relieved. Thank goodness, our family's still safe and sound. Then I wake up, back to the day Derek suggested we all go see the northern lights. This time, they can go to hell to see their aurora without me. I'm not tagging along. Experts predict freakish weather soon, with a massive blizzard in the Arctic, a once-in-a-century kind of thing. People are warned to stay safe. As alerts pop up on my phone, I just stare at the screen, kind of spaced out. Did I just get reborn? After freezing and starving to death, I'm back on the day Derek suggested the family trip to see the northern lights. Last time, I mentioned the unusual weather to turn down Derek's idea. Right after, Derek threw a fit, accusing me of jinxing them on purpose. My mom, Lily, heard Derek and rushed over, yanking my hair and hitting me across the face. Ungrateful little thing. We raised you, and this is how you repay us. I lost a few teeth, and half my face went numb. As Derek clapped his hands in glee, my dad, Tom, kicked me out the door, and my head hit the ground hard. He told me to kneel outside and pray to Buddha to get rid of my bad luck. Didn't let me stand until it was time to leave, because they needed someone to carry their bags. Later, the blizzard came, right on cue. Derek said it was because I had no faith, so Buddha didn't protect us. I was blamed for everything and left without food or clothes to keep warm. I died in the freezing cold. On the second day after I died, the rescue team arrived. Under the stunning northern lights, my parents hugged Derek, crying tears of joy. Thankfully, our family's still safe. That's when I realized they were the family all along. I was just a waste of money to them. Mom, I want to go to the Arctic, Derek demanded. All my friends have been there. I gotta go too. Money's tight at home, so we usually save wherever we can. Going to the Arctic would cost a fortune. Lily, looking embarrassed, hesitated. Derek, maybe we just stick around here. What's so great about the northern lights anyway? It's freezing up there. Before she could finish, Derek started screaming and rolling around, insisting on the trip. Tom, feeling sorry for him, scooped Derek up and slapped Lily. What do you know, woman? Once Derek's been to the Arctic, he'll be someone who's seen the world. It'll give us bragging rights. I stood by the door, watching the drama unfold with a cold stare. Everything was just like before, but this time, I saw their true colors and kept my mouth shut. What if they ended up blaming it all on me again? Lily, holding her face in frustration, watched the loving father-son duo, biting her lip in silence. Her eyes darted to me and turned fierce as she stormed over, yanking my hair. You lazy girl, finished washing those dishes or just standing there playing dead? I gritted my teeth and swallowed my anger, quickly begging, Mom. I'm sorry, I'll get to work now. Derek, suddenly remembering I existed, gave me a smug smile. Dad, I don't want to go if she's coming. It'd be so much better with just us three. Hearing that, I felt a bit of joy bubbling up, but before I could speak, Lily pulled Derek close, cooing at him. Derek, who's gonna carry our bags if she doesn't go? Those hikers are pricey. We'll save money and buy you some nice clothes in the Arctic for pictures under the lights. Derek understood, and his grin widened. Yeah, she's been freeloading long enough. She should work for us. Tom praised Derek's smart thinking, and Lily kissed him. They seemed so happy together. Meanwhile, I stood alone in the kitchen, my fingers pale and wrinkling from dishwater, as they excitedly planned the Arctic trip. I couldn't help but smirk. Since you're dragging me along, then let me witness your downfall this time. The news had been blaring warnings about the freak weather non-stop. When Lily saw, she wavered, thinking about convincing Tom and Derek to postpone. But how could that be? Missing this chance would mean not getting the revenge from my past life. I knew Derek liked to go against me, so I played my part, expressing worry and keeping a low profile. There are talks of a blizzard in the Arctic on the news, Derek. It's huge, I doubt you can handle it. Before I even finished my sentence, Derek exploded. Who do you think you're underestimating? In TV shows, so many survive these storms. I can do way better. Anyway, I told my friends I'd snap some Aurora pics. Are you trying to embarrass me? Lily, who had hesitated, hardened upon hearing this. Clearing her throat, she chimed in, that girl just can't stand seeing her brother do well. Derek's a real man and will achieve something big. Scared off by snow? How would that look? Tom nodded in agreement. My son's one of a kind. When he conquers the storm and comes back, we'll have our own bragging rights. No matter what, we took the road to the Arctic this lifetime too, defying science and warnings, believing it to be all scams and lies. But mostly because they'd already boasted about it to everyone. Lily's been bragging on Twitter several times about how she's going to capture Derek's heroic moments in the snowstorm. She wants everyone to see how accomplished her son is. Tom, meanwhile, acts all cocky at the bar, like he's regained his manhood. Derek struts around school, boasting he's about to go to the Arctic, take on snowstorms, and even snap a selfie with a polar bear. I keep my head down, taking care of the chores, showering, laundry, and cleaning. If I slow down even a bit, Lily would whack me with a feather duster. The day we left, just like in the past life, we drove to the Arctic. Seeing the familiar warning signs, I knew we were on the edge. Beyond that, anything could happen. But Derek and my folks were totally unfazed, lost in their fantasies of boasting about their icy adventures with photos. I huddled in the back seat, hiding my grin. In the past, Derek always blamed me for saying unlucky things, trying to stop them from seeing the northern lights. But this time around, I'm not only not stopping them, I'm there to escort them all the way to hell. Once we crossed the line, the car broke down almost immediately. It wouldn't budge no matter what. Furious, Tom slammed the steering wheel, cursing the car rental guy for giving us a faulty ride. Derek started whining, not wanting to walk. Lily cuddled him, keeping her distance from the fuming Tom. They had talked big though, and despite Derek's tantrums about walking, we all got out. I lugged 2 heavy backpacks while dragging big bags in each hand, struggling along behind them. Soon, I was too exhausted to lift my back. Stumbling on the uneven ice, I craned my neck to spot the group ahead. Lily carried a small bag. Tom and Derek had nothing in their hands, claiming men save their strength for when it counts. After about 10 minutes, we realized we were lost. Mountains of snow and ice surrounded us, blindingly white. The snow was getting thicker, and the sky darkened ominously. Tom's brow furrowed, his stream of cursing unbroken. Derek seemed to sense the trouble too and obediently stuck close to his parents for once. But he still found time to vent at me. Move it, slowpoke. Every insult Derek hurled, Lily was quick to follow, backing him up. You deadweight. Holding us back on purpose. She poked my head hard with each word. Of course, those not carrying anything have more energy. If only someone else carried some weight, maybe I wouldn't be so slow. Head hanging low, I labored under my burden. It felt like I might sink into the snow, like in the past life, becoming a frozen corpse. Enough. Tom's fists tightened, anger distorting his face. He blamed Lily for our predicament, accusing her cost-cutting decisions of not hiring a guide or buying tickets for us getting lost. He paused when he saw my slow plodding. Perhaps annoyed at my pace, he told Derek to take a bag. No way. Why me? You're empty-handed too. Derek's resistance was fiercer. Spoiled since birth, he never did a day's hard work with me around, let alone carrying a backpack. Tom's stern tone triggered Derek's rebellion, standing up to him defiantly. Tom, already on edge over the broken car and losing our way, snapped. Grabbing Derek's shirt, he yelled, "Is this how you talk to your father?" I'm your dad, you do what I say. Lily tried to soothe things, suggesting Tom shouldn't argue with a child, while Derek and Tom, seeing red, came to blows. Lily hurried to intervene, and in a wild flail, got smacked in the head, creating a sickening thud. She hit the ice hard, screamed in pain, drawing father and son back to their senses. I was first to react, dropping my bags, and rushing over in concern. Mom, you okay? I'm fine. Lily lay there, trying to push herself up. All of a sudden, her face turned pale, a pained gasp escaping her. Mom, what's wrong? I was suddenly shoved aside with force. Derek charged in, acting the doting son. His angry bout with Tom forgotten, a phony concern plain to see now. I chuckled, realizing his swollen lip was testament he couldn't win a fight with Tom and now he was just trying to save face. But the hatred in his eyes for Tom couldn't be missed, just because Tom didn't humor him that one time, he already bore a grudge. Hilarious, really. You're a good son, knowing how to care for me. Lily didn't glance at me, only beamed at Derek. Don't worry, I think it's just a sprained arm. Your mom's tougher than that. I coldly eyed her left arm. The unnatural angle screamed fracture. But Lily, with her indulgence in salty, rich food and high-protein diets, had ignored my advice about dietary moderation. This likely contributed to her brittle bones. But Lily wouldn't listen. She thought I was just being mean, jealous of her, not wanting her to enjoy good food. Our family had strict rules at the dinner table. The best meat? That was always for Tom and Derek. Then came Lily. I used to get some leftovers, but Lily was convinced I envied her, so she wouldn't let me near the table to compete for food. I couldn't even get a taste of the soup anymore. I had to sit in the corner with a battered bowl, eating what they left behind. Worse off than a dog. That uneven diet left Lily with osteoporosis. Now she's fallen and easily broke her arm. I've been pushed down so many times, hit my head against the wall, yet I've never broken a bone. In the end, Lily just had bad luck. Watching her in pain, I felt a thrill, couldn't even feel the cold. This is fantastic. In our past life, when we got lost, we kept walking in one direction just like now. We hit a fork, both paths looked the same, snow over thick ice. I figured the left was safer. The right, from what I knew, likely had narrow ice crevices. I suggested we go left. But Derek insisted on opposing me, pick the riskier right path. I strongly objected, but our parents yelled, "What do you know? Derek's our future. We do what he says." Sure enough, the right path was dangerous. I remember it well, narrow paths with steep drops. We'd crawl, clinging on, to get across. We made it last time, but now Lily's got a broken arm. She won't make it if we face danger again. I wondered if Lily's son and husband would leave her behind, like they did to me before. I was a bit curious. Soon enough, the familiar fork appeared. Tom rubbed his hands, unsure. He knew he'd only get one shot to choose right. If something happened, we couldn't afford to waste time or energy. I pretended to check the paths, then pointed firmly at the safer route. This way. I'd done my homework, heard this road was safer, no narrow ice paths. And Derek didn't disappoint, argued with me again. What does she know? Women are clueless. Their choices can be ignored. Let's go the other way. Lily looked at me disgustedly. Derek's right. Men make the big decisions. What do you know? And off they went down Derek's path. Sure, if their family's prized genius thought so, it must be great. I supported Lily and slowly followed behind them. You picked it yourselves, don't whine later. Derek and Tom walked ahead confidently. We walked for a bit, and Derek suddenly cheered, pointing at a giant ice pillar. Good thing I didn't listen to my sister, or I'd miss this amazing ice. He wanted photos to show off to classmates. The tension on our parents eased, they smiled and took pictures. Derek, curious, wanted to taste the ice. Lily, worried about germs, told him no. Derek hesitated. I didn't wait, whispered sharply, Derek, books say licking ice could stick your tongue. Angered, Derek yelled at me with a red face, read a book, you think that makes you smart? Derek wasn't a good student, often barely passing. He resented me for doing well, tore my homework and laughed about it. Makes no difference, you'll get married, books mean nothing. Just get dowry for me. Mentioning this always hit a nerve. True enough, choking with anger, he slapped his tongue on the ice. Our parents gushed over him, snapping photos. Then Derek realized his tongue was stuck. His face fell, kicking wildly, waving his arms. Help me. Parents panicked, rushed to save him. I watched, barely hiding a smile. Derek was like a stuck pig, his tongue glued to the ice. I didn't tell them hot water was the way to unstick it. Ignorance is dangerous. Derek flailed, pride gone, crying, dripping with snot and tears. With a nasty scream, he pulled himself free, tongue and all. The ice had a bloody chunk, dots of blood on the snow. Dad, it hurts. Derek mumbled, wiping his face with snot, crying. Lily held Derek close, cursed the ice that hurt her son. She winced touching her own arm. I looked at Derek's pitiful state, feeling thrilled. But still not enough. I glanced at the sky. Dark clouds gathered, biting wind cut like knives. A blizzard was coming. Dad, I'm cold. Derek was holding his injured mouth, terrified that the cold wind might get in. Tom, tall and strong, hugged himself, shaking badly with a frosty layer on his eyebrows. They never expected the blizzard to really hit. The snow beneath their feet was getting thicker, and they had to balance themselves with each step by holding onto something to avoid falling. Lily's broken arm was clearly not holding up well. She let out painful cries, but neither her husband nor son seemed to care. She pleaded, humbly asking them to help her walk. No one responded. Tom just focused on the journey, while Derek was preoccupied with his painful mouth. It was like they didn't even hear Lily's pleas. Watching this, I felt it was all a bit ironic. It wasn't just me they were heartless to. When their own interests were threatened, they could coldly abandon family members who stood on the same side. Did they really see each other as family? I walked at the back of the group. Lily's eyes lit up when she saw me. She shook off her miserable demeanor and adopted her usual haughty tone towards me. Stupid girl, what are you looking at? Hurry and help me. Compliantly, I moved closer, letting her put her entire weight on me as we stumbled through the snowy ice. Even in pain, Lily kept cursing, from the blizzard to the broken-down car. She eventually turned her anger on me. I gave birth to you and raised you, so you should obey me. When have I ever been bad to you? I listened quietly, still helping her along, not uttering a word. Good to me? Beating me with a cane until I was covered in wounds, letting Derek pour hot oil on me, is that being good? Every scar I have is their doing. Yet I stayed silent, obediently helping her like a loyal dog. Can't let her die here. Watching them lose all hope of escape, buried in snow, wouldn't that be better? We walked for ages and finally stopped at a familiar ice path. A narrow icy track stretched before us, with a deep abyss on the side. To cross, we'd need to crawl on all fours slowly along the ice. The atmosphere became tense. The storm hit, dropping the temperature. We didn't have the time or strength to turn back. We had no choice but to press on. Yet the smooth ice meant even crawling by hand could result in slipping and falling to pieces. Especially for someone like Lily with a broken arm. Lily, realizing the danger she was in, looked at Dad with desperate eyes. But Tom avoided her gaze. Derek, Lily turned to her son, her voice barely above a whisper. Derek just looked impatient, sizing up the path for the safest way across. Lily's pleas went unheard by the men she cherished most. Her face turned pale, frosted over. Shock, despair, disbelief flashed across her face. Lily's lips moved, but she couldn't find the words. How desperate must it feel to be abandoned by the family you love most? The icy snow falling on me reminded me of the cruel fate I suffered in the past life, frozen to death. Back then, they took all my food and warm clothes. I was just as hopeless. As expected, after their discussion, Tom and Derek decided I'd cross first. I carefully crawled over the ice, followed by Tom and Derek. By the time Lily tried to cross, they had already turned, ready to leave, eager to not waste a moment. I saw Lily's broken arm struggle to hold her up. A gust of wind swept over, and she wobbled on the icy path, plummeting into the abyss below. The last sound my mom left in this world was a shrill scream. I wondered if she regretted desperately trying to please the husband and son who eventually discarded her without mercy. Blizzard raging, I looked at the two men ahead, silently planning. Only two left. The sky got darker. When the snow threatened to bury us, Tom found a cave. A low snow cave, looking surprisingly inviting and perfect for shelter from the storm. Derek shoved me aside, rushing in. It's too small in here. You stay outside and keep watch. Tom squeezed inside, blocking the entrance with a heavy backpack. His frostbitten face peered out coldly at me. Derek's right, not enough room. Find somewhere else. I watched as they sealed the entrance with their bags and gear, standing outside in the raging storm, freezing cold. Fools. Would any shelter just present itself like that? Springtime is polar bear breeding season. It's likely this cave was dug for placing cubs. A mother bear protecting her cubs must be fierce. Turning, I walked into the swirling snow. I had researched emergency survival tactics for the Arctic in my second chance at life. If you can't find shelter at night, you can dig a snow pit. If it's deep enough, it can keep you warm. Many survivors use this method in extreme situations. Curled up in my warm snow pit, I nibbled on my stash of energy bars and chocolate. The wind wailed outside, and distant screams mingled with bear roars reached my ears. Wonder how many of them survived, if any. In the snug warmth, I drifted into sleep. Next morning, I crawled out of my snow pit. The landscape had changed overnight, now blanketed in thick snow. I purposely chose a spot far from the polar bear cave to avoid the father-son pair. I started moving towards the snow cave from last night. After walking a few dozen meters, I spotted some messy tracks on the ground. There was frozen blood and tiny bits of flesh with clothing scraps stuck to them. Probably because it was sheltered from the wind, the traces weren't completely covered by ice and snow yet. It seemed like the polar bear had quite a feast last night. A few more steps forward revealed a mess of torn-up meat. Nearby, some clothing scraps caught my eye. That was probably my dad. Yikes, he died in pieces. In the distance, I found Derek. He was filthy, covered in blood, and missing half an arm, apparently bitten off. As soon as I approached him, I heard him pulling at his hair like a lunatic, mumbling to himself. It's not my fault, you ran slow. I just gave you a push, and you fell. It's not my fault. Looks like the polar bear got mad last night when it found its territory invaded and attacked the sleeping duo. The father and son were cornered at the cave entrance. In a bid to save himself, Derek pushed Tom, managing to save his own skin. But he still lost half an arm to the bear. I slowly crouched in front of Derek and yanked his hair, forcing him to lift his head. Staring straight into his unfocused eyes, filled with malice, I sneered, "Did the bear mind having you both as a meal?" Derek shivered violently. Recognizing my face, his eyes widened and he let out a pained howl. He lunged at me, like the past 10 years, trying to pin me down and beat me. But he forgot he's missing half an arm, practically useless now. I easily dodged and stomped on his chest. "Do you want to live or die?" With both our parents gone and him gravely injured, all the supplies were now with me. Derek's life or death was in my hands. He realized this and collapsed at my feet, crying desperately. Like a pathetic dog, he begged for forgiveness. Watching him, I allowed him a few dozen kowtows before stomping hard on the back of his head, pressing his face into the snow, grinding it in. Why should I save you? I never intended to let this family make it out alive. If we're family, we die together. Derek was buried in the snow, watching my retreating figure, cursing with his last breath, "You'll die a horrible death." I waved him off without a backward glance. Yeah, people like me tend to live long, spreading trouble for years. In a previous life, Derek had taken all my food, and urged stripping me of warm clothes while our parents hesitated. I was left in light clothing, curling up in the icy wilderness. After I died, he stepped right over my body. If the rescue team hadn't arrived in time, he might have even cannibalized my corpse to survive. I think I'm still pretty kind. At least I didn't strip him down, leaving him some decency. Though in his state now, he'd likely bleed out or freeze to death in the snow soon enough. But what do I care? Leaning on their family's leftover food, I waited successfully for the rescue team. Seeing me alone, they embraced me, filled with sympathy, lamenting my fate, starving and frail after just a few days. Their tight embrace almost choked me. Though the rescue lady's hug was warm, I had to clarify. My being thin was due to years of hunger, constantly having to scavenge food from them. This trip to the Arctic was a blessing, with no beatings or forced labor. I even put on weight from enjoying energy bars and chocolate I prepared myself. Derek finally got his wish. His picture, alongside the polar bears, hit the news headlines. Together with Tom and Lily's story, they became a viral spectacle, scrutinized by everyone online. My past sufferings were dug up, laid bare for all to see, garnering sympathy worldwide. People cheered at their demise, viewing it as deserved karma. Too bad for the young girl, alone after such a tragedy. Poor, scared, and helpless. The truth is, I'm unusually free and happy now. All family is dead, all assets are mine. The house, combined savings, and money saved for Derek's future all belong to me. I held onto it all tightly. For the first time, I ate a dream-come-true KFC meal, no longer peering through the glass while they indulged. I treated my 7-year-old self generously. No worries about a beating for craving milk tea. Even the scars from years of abuse started to fade. I kept up with school, meeting pitying eyes from classmates, studying hard. No more household chores or Derek's bullying. I sailed smoothly through my education. The moment I got that acceptance letter from a prestigious school, I truly felt my fate had shifted. No more freezing to death, trampled in the ice and snow, but instead, ready to embrace a bright and promising future.